Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone had a good lunch, and I hope you're not too tired to listen to what we're about to discuss. We have very important people, very knowledgeable people here, very wise people. We have Ruth BRIONES, Chairman CEO from Greenergy Solutions. We have Ruth Yu-Owen from Upgrade Energy, the CEO of Upgrade Energy, and the Executive Director of ACEN, Lagazo. So with that, what we really plan to do today is take a bit more of a macro step or discussion about the overall renewable energy industry. And I think as much as possible, we will try to tackle some of the issues that we feel like exist today, some of the basically the bottlenecks, the problems or roadblocks in the renewable energy industry, not just utility scale, but also rooftop and storage and energy efficiency. So why don't we start with a quick question about the overall renewable energy landscape. Maybe we'll start with Ms. Ruth Owen. Are we honest? Sorry. How do you feel about where renewable energy is placed today in terms of cost, its economics?
Actually, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Energy Box, for this opportunity to speak again in your forum. And I've been in the renewable energy space even before the RE law was approved. I've been conducting studies in the Asian area, Philippines, Vietnam, and other Asian countries. Renewable energy status now is better than 5 years ago when we were just starting, and to date, the implementation of the RLO also has been improved, enforced, and partly fully implemented, with all the policies being also in place. And although at the very start, we developers find it so hard to move forward when we're just starting. On our part, we have big 8 utility projects at our end, Greenergy Solution. During that time when we skipped starting, the equity cap has been enforced, 60-40, which is very, very hard for us to look for investors. Also, permitting process is too long, so we find it hard. At the same time, government agencies cannot understand what is going on with the RE space. So you have to process ECC for 1 year, in CIB for another 1 year, largest conversion for 3 years, and you have to wait for about 2 years for your certificate of commerciality. That was before. Well, however, we're very, very happy now that everything has become faster. Although the feed-in tariff has not been enforced, we are a part of the first green energy auction. We are one of the 3 solar power producers that we got the contract. So we are looking forward. That's it for the meantime.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So you've been part of the initial green energy auction.
Yes.
And you won a certain amount of capacity. Yes. How many megawatts did you win?
125 megawatt.
Wow, amazing.
Yes.
And these have, when's the implementation period for those?
We will be, we are constructing now, and we will be online 2025 March.
Very good, very good.
Yes.
How about Ruth Owen, Yu-Owen this time?
Yeah, get it right, please.
Yeah, I'll try.
Sorry.
Same question about the renewable energy landscape.
I guess it's getting better, as mentioned earlier. We see that the road is getting brighter. I mean, this room is full of investors that want to invest in the Philippines, either as partners, funders, and it's very vibrant, right? It's changing the landscape of renewable energy. Having been in this industry for more than 20 years, the law was passed in 2008, but it's slow, but it's getting there, but it can be better. I think the roadmap should be a lot clearer, and I'm optimistic, like I said earlier, about how how it's going to turn out for this industry.
In terms of renewable energy costs, though, how competitive is renewables now compared to traditional forms of energy?
Well, you know, when you talk about solar, more than 10 years ago, it was not affordable for anyone, right? And then the technology has improved, the price has come down, the efficiency level, technology, the Internet of Things, those things come into play, and it just makes it so much palatable for investors, for end users, right? I mean, you see that you're in rooftop solar, right? And you see that people are more woke, if you like, you know, they're more aware that this solar is not just about being green, but it also makes a lot of commercial sense to put rooftop solar on your roof, right?
Correct, yeah, especially now, where cost of electricity has increased again. In some parts of like in Germany, for example, it's almost at 50 euro cents per kilowatt hour, which is crazy. It's over 20 pesos per kilowatt hour. And Doji, you've obviously been in this game also a very long time, and you've probably seen, I mean, over the last few years, you've seen changes in the industry. What's your take on the I guess the speed of rate of additional capacities from a year-on-year basis?
Yeah, thank you, James. I'm from ACEN. It's actually a relatively young company. AC Energy was started out only in 2010. Back then, it was so expensive to get into renewables. But I have to say, since then, the landscape has changed drastically. There was a time when we talk about renewable energy, we really just talk about hydro. That's really how the Philippines viewed renewable energy before. But now that has changed. We're now talking about solar, about wind power plants, and we've started talking about offshore wind and also floating solar. ESS is also in the mix, although you can argue that it's not renewable, but at least it's already being discussed. So, James, back in 2010, just to share, we looked at a solar power plant project, and we thought that for it to be viable, the feed-in tariff should be in the area of 17 pesos. Of course, that didn't sit well with the regulators, and the feed-in tariff that was approved was much lower than what was being discussed before, 17 pesos, 20 pesos. But with the developments in technology, additional manufacturers of solar panels and wind turbines, the cost of building plants have also have become lower. There was a time when it became, for solar at least, it became sub $1 million per megawatt. However, because of the challenges brought about by the Ukraine war and also challenges in China, the prices of solar panels have since become higher again. So solar and wind have become more competitive compared to coal, but we have to face reality. Coal is still the cheaper option. The other challenge there is solar and wind, of course, are intermittent. They cannot compete with the base load plants unless you put in energy storage in the mix. However, ESS is still very expensive right now, so only a few companies can afford to mix solar and wind with energy storage. But then again, the direction has been very clear. Kudos to the government. The targets have been set very clear. We have a 2030 target. We have a 2040 target. All it takes now is for the policies to be improved further, and not just the policies, but also the implementing rules. They really have to be improved in order for the Philippines to become a champion of renewables in Southeast Asia. Right now, we're a distant second to Vietnam.
Can I?
Go ahead, yes, please.
Yeah, so it's important that policy is the driver. It has to set the tone. it shouldn't change in the middle of the ball game, right? And that's sometimes what happens when there's like a change of administration, that the rules change because of priorities. But hopefully, I think in other countries, that's what they are, right? They're consistent with the policy. And you know, and so if you're an investor, right, you come in and you invest in this because of these parameters, and then they change it in the middle of the game, then it just throws you out, right? So policy being consistent is imperative.
I definitely agree with that one. Because developers look at projects long-term. So they build projects based on certain assumptions. So once you change the rules in the middle of the process, then everything goes into limbo, and certain decisions will need to be made whether to proceed still or not. So consistency with the policies is very, very important. I definitely agree.
With how things are now and with the rate things are progressing, what's your personal opinion on the future energy mix? Because I mean, now we're still around 20-ish% renewables, but I think it's only 1.4% from solar, 1-point-something% from wind. It's predominantly hydro and geothermal. Do you see a big shift in that percentage? And if yes, what kind of shift?
Can I talk about that? As of today, it's the current situation of the energy mix is still far better now than before, but if you look about the current situation, that's a real issue, because we have yet to see the seriousness of the government regarding on the changing of the energy mix, because we are only looking at 2030. But that is very far from now. It's only 2023. What will happen in 2023 up to 2030, when the country is already experiencing the impact of this climate change? Do we wait for the Philippines to submerge until 2030 in order to give you a higher portion of renewable energy in the energy mix? Can we wait for 2050, 2040 to have it 50%, when the country is already, what happened? There are no more cities available because all oil and water, there are more forests. So I think I would rather request the government, if I have a one voice to be multiplied with so many voices, why is it that the energy mix must be revised now? I've been working on this for many years. That was so small. Why coal? Why natural gas? Why is it now? So it's now time to revise the energy mix. Why wait for 2030? Because see, tomorrow there will be a lot of impacts of climate change. That is really the reason why we are doing renewable energy. But our purpose is to make that happen now. So the energy mix now is not a response to the real purpose of the RA law.
With the energy mix, 2030 was supposedly just be the target for, and of course during those years that should be when the transition happens. Do you think that's likely to happen?
I don't know, but then there will be another administration by then.
That's a very good point.
Yes. Who will be the next president? If it is not pro-RE, what will happen?
In terms of political, since we're
the reason why RE law or renewable energy just cannot push so hard because of political issues, especially at the grassroots.
And I think not just national, even on an international scale, right?
Yes.
In terms of overall geopolitical risks,
very much.
where do you see, apart from, of course, our own politics in the Philippines, what about other international politics? I mean, we're talking about Ukraine, we're talking about Taiwan.
That issue, geopolitical matters, influence so much the local sector, especially Philippines. But however, the Philippine government now look at renewable energy as real alternative, but it should not be alternative. It's not just an option. It must be the priority. It's not just because we don't have so much oil, it's very costly. We should not look at alternatives. It should be the real, it should be the priority thing to do, not just an option.
Ruth, what do you think?
Okay, I just want to talk about energy efficiency as part of the energy mix. That's the low-hanging fruit, right? And it takes behavioral change for each and every one of us, right, to contribute to energy efficiency. We always say, turn off the lights, do this. Those are the small things that you can do as a consumer or a user. But energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit, and it should be part of the energy mix. Because if you are energy efficient, that's one less power plant you build, right? It's cleaner, it's immediate, it creates jobs. So yeah, I'm an officer of the Philippine Energy Efficiency Alliance, and we have members that are energy service companies, funders, solar rooftop developers, EPC, etc. And then that's our goal, to make energy efficiency part of the energy mix. Don't you agree?
No, definitely agree, Ruth. And if I may just add to what has already been said, because definitely we agree, RE should be the priority. It's really the way to the future, not just in the Philippines, everywhere in the world, RE is really the way to go. Of course, the government has to be conscious about the near-term requirements of the country, medium-term and long-term. That's why I said earlier, the targets are very clear. Having the near-term, medium-term, and short and long-term goal set by the government is very, very important. We cannot, of course, disregard now the benefits of having baseload power plants while we continue to build renewable energy plants, solar, wind, and hopefully in the near future, offshore wind and floating solar. I think we also have to understand that the government is also very conscious about ensuring that there is energy security in the country. And while we are not yet there in terms of the RE installed capacity in the Philippines, then we need baseload plants as well. Having said that, the private sector is in full support of the RE revolutions in the country, not just ACEN, but other Philippine developers. They're in full support of that one, but we can only do so much. The government will need to have in place regulations that are effective, not just focusing on national government rules, but rules that also involve local governments, rules that also involve other government agencies such as the NCIP, because those are the government agencies that have a lot of say in terms of how we develop more solar plants, more wind farms in the Philippines.
In terms of storage, I mean, because if we're talking about a lot of renewables, obviously we have fluctuating energy production. Storage could be is a great solution that complements this production. But where are we now with storage costs? Do we have levelized cost of electricity projections on where it is today versus where it's going?
Well, Errol Narida earlier mentioned about battery storage with renewable, and that was about 20 pesos per kilowatt hour, which would be cheaper compared to the diesel that's about 50 per kilowatt hour, and that's subsidized, right? So 50 pesos minus 20, the government is subsidizing 30 peso. So yeah, I suppose energy storage is the way to go in the off-grid areas, although maybe for a bigger, on-grid, it is still prohibitive. But it is a good start. I think that's where we started with solar as well, right? You're talking about 17 pesos, 19 pesos, more than 10 years ago. But look where we now. We're all talking about solar. This is a conference just based on solar, right? And who knows, in 5 years' time, it's all about battery storage.
That's also our hope, that the trajectory for ESS prices will follow that of solar panels. Because for solar, it has consistently gone down with a bit of a plateauing in recent years. But for energy storage batteries, we hope it will continue to go down so that it will become more viable as a mix, as a hybrid to be combined with solar. Since we're on the topic of storage, though, this is one thing where we really need the government to help us in terms of regulations, because it's not clear how ESS and battery energy storage system projects should be treated. We had a lot of discussions with the regulators on this point. They understand the needs, but unfortunately, the regulations are not yet there. Where to put the meter? Is it beyond this point or below this point? How do you treat hybrids? How do you treat the standalone ESS projects? So we need clarity from the government so that we can build more while we continue to wait for prices for ESS to go down to a level that will allow developers to make it and to make it viable.
So going back to the energy mix really quick, do you see that the market would be in 20 years, let's project really far down the road, but in 20 years, 15 to 20, 25 years, would we get to a point where, let's say, 20%, 30% of our capacity comes from solar, maybe another 10, 20% from wind? Is that a viable thought?
Yes, I think, not I think so, I'm sure about that. Actually, we can do 100% renewable energy. With geothermal, hydro, biomass, waste to energy, solar and wind, we could do 100%. Even without coal, without natural gas. Honestly, we started doing hydro projects during the power crisis and geothermal. And although only a few areas has been electrified, but however, if we have to do it now, everywhere in the country have renewable energy sources. We have the sun, we have the wind, biomass, hydro, geothermal. We can do it 100%. And that's really not the start, it's really it should be the end game for the country to move forward faster. If you only think a direction or roadmap going towards 100% renewables, and every place in the country, you have renewable energy sources. LGU, you have solid waste management. At the outskirts of the mountains, we have biomass technologies. We have the sun at 19. We are the second highest irrigation in ASEAN, and we have so much wind. We could do more than 50% renewables, not only 50. But my question on the 50% and 2040 is, what will happen to the 50%? Is it coal? Is it natural gas? 50-50 is a balance, but then what? It's too hot already, and the RE can no longer withstand the impacts of climate change. What will happen with the Philippines? So RE must be higher in energy mix.
Which of the technologies has the biggest chance?
To move forward, solar and
In
wind.
terms of that energy mix, which do you think will have the biggest share?
Solar,
Solar, okay.
yes. With all the technologies on hand, not only that, we should go away from centralized system of solar utilities. We should have a decentralized system of solar generation, development, and distribution. We should establish consumer-producer microgrid solar system. Should be community-based, wherein the people produce their own solar system, and this solar system will power the whole community. That is very ideal. I would agree with Ruth regarding energy efficiency. That is a very, very good direction in the Philippine government.
Do you agree with solar?
Yeah. So if you read the headlines, it says 2,500 megawatt of nuclear capacity by a certain period. That's the headline. It's quite scary Because for a country that built a nuclear power plant that was never commissioned, is now again talking about nuclear of about 2,500. That could be part of the energy mix. However, before we get violent reaction from Cora Claudio over there, I think we should harness the full potential of renewable energy, solar, wind, and whatever comes, becomes available technologically, price-wise, etc. Then that should be the way to go, right? So
I agree, Ruth. Although if I may differ a bit, because solar, of course, is we're very rich with solar energy in the Philippines. However, to build more solar plants, we require land, and land is a finite resource. I think we should, and the government should really focus on enabling offshore wind, because we have a lot of waters. The Philippines is a coastal, it's an archipelago, Philippines. So if we're talking about 2040, 2050 targets, we need to encourage offshore wind projects, because that doesn't require land, which is a finite resource, which is competing directly with our agricultural requirements. So yeah,
Now,
we need offshore wind.
I thought, Dodgy, you said, I thought you were going to say we should do offshore solar because, solar wind, because that's where we're heading for. No, I'm just kidding. No, but rooftop solar, I think the roof out there, if you look at, like whenever I go out of town, I see roof, endless roof without solar panels. Those are the real estate that are not being tapped at the moment, right? It's not competing with food. It's not competing with the farmers, but it's there. But what's promising, as we mentioned earlier, is that it's going to be, there's a GIAP price for rooftop solar. It's a great start. It's very promising. That's totally different from the green energy auction, the gear price last year. It wasn't even part of that. But now it's there, and yeah, rooftop, right? It's good for you and me, James.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah?
100%. I mean, let's put the space into perspective a little bit. So I mean, the Philippines requires about 100 billion kilowatt hours of energy per year. In order to get 100 billion kilowatt hours of energy, we need about 85,000 megawatts of solar. Right? If we just spoke about solar, which needs about 85,000 hectares of land, which is about 800 square kilometers. Metro Manila is about 600 square kilometers. Does that sound like a lot?
Well, it's a lot because we use land for a variety of purposes, right? Philippine land is not just will not just be used for solar energy, but we also need that for housing, agriculture, and others. That's why I was pointing out earlier, land is a finite resource. And not all land in the Philippines are viable for solar development, because some are pretty steep, some are located in areas where solar energy is not at this highest potential. That's why we have to start looking at other areas in the Philippines. And again, we are an archipelago. We're surrounded by waters.
So
and
therefore, floating solar.
floating solar is yes. Thanks for pointing that out. It's another viable alternative, of course, to wind. But even that will require a lot of water surface area, water enough for us to build. Laguna Lake, kudos to LLDA. It already initiated the process of awarding possessory rights to willing developers. And we're just waiting now for LLDA to finally approve and award the possessory rights to those areas. So we need to take advantage of whatever space that we have. Dams, because it can work very, very well with floating solar so that it can also prevent the lahar lands. We can use those things and those lands to build more solar projects. But for us to do that, we really need government's help and support to enable developers such as ACEN and the other developers.
And I understand ACEN has been very aggressive the last few years in developing renewable energy projects, not just in the Philippines, around the world. How has that gone so far? I think we briefly spoke about that. ACEN has been doing how much in capacity?
Currently, we have around 4 gigawatts of attributable capacity, but that includes projects that are already operating and also under construction. Close to half of that are projects located in the Philippines. And we've been fortunate to be able to penetrate other ASEAN countries like Vietnam and Indonesia, and also outside of ASEAN, India and Australia. But of course, the core market for ACEN continues to be the Philippines. We're very, very cognizant of the energy requirements of our country. We're very supportive of the government's efforts and the other developers to really try to build and make the Philippines a renewable energy power in ASEAN. So yeah, take this opportunity as well, because I noticed, and one feedback I got from this morning was that unfortunately there are no representatives here coming from the regulators or from the government. So it would have been better if someone from the DOE or ERC would have participated, so that they could have heard the sentiments coming from the private sector. But I hope that through this seminar conference, we can let and give feedback to our regulators so that they can take this into account. I know that a lot of people attending here are also part of industry groups. So we have associations, industry groups, who can voice these considerations, these concerns.
Yeah, agree.
We just really need to align, Ruth.
Yeah, no, so, with all these conferences happening, we have panel discussions, we have people moderating, people speaking. There's a lot of valuable thoughts, suggestions, insights that are important for regulators to hear the heartbeat of the industry, if you like. But then we can't just leave this stage and finish this, and then the next one, and the next one, and we forget. We cannot forget. These discussions are quite important. This is not about us sitting here talking about things. In fact, I was telling the other conference organizers that they should synthesize each and every panel discussions, speakers, so that this can be collated. And you're right, I'm a chairperson for the Management Association of the Philippines in the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines for Energy Committee. So our goal is really an advocacy to bring these issues to the attention of policymakers, right? Department of Energy, all of that. So yeah, it's important. It is, yeah, I agree.
How else can we do that? I mean, this is of course one solution, and I think it's a very good one that this is being done, that we are sharing information and we are encouraging policymakers to join these events, and that's one way. Are there other things that we could do to get the message across?
Actually, DOE has been calling everyone among developers to public consultation every now and then. Lately, they also called us to attend public consultation pertaining to policy changes. And actually, and also, like for us, winners of the first JIA, they call us for a meeting, discuss the issues, problems, and challenges. We discuss to them what is going on with the projects. And every now and then, DOE also calls us on also. We also go direct to ERC for some issues. And also, we discuss also with the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, inform them what really are problems, and also discuss with other regulators like in the environment sector, in CIP and the local government units. Because it is our obligations as a developer to deal directly with the regulators. It is mandated by us to go directly to whoever give us the permit. So whatever problems that we encounter on the process, we inform them. And the EBOS is very useful to us, the EBOS system. So whatever, that fast track the process at the Department of Energy. And we found out recently that DOE really also listens. ERC also listens. in GCP also listens. So it's a way forward, and because everybody knows that I'm among the developers, I'm the most critical. I always deliver the very first critics to the government, and they told me, why not sit with us? What are your problems? I told them, why not discuss with the Department of Agriculture the very long process of permitting process of land use conversion. So they shorten the process, remove a lot of agencies involved there, but they remove everything about Department of Agriculture, but then here comes another agency of Department of Agriculture. They return that agency to make it a 1-year processing for irrigation permit that takes longer again. Sorry, thank you.
I think we're out of time, unfortunately. I still had a lot of questions, but well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, dear speakers, panelists, for being here and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.